The doctor shot up from his seat and ran to hide behind the high-backed chair, peeking around the side of the chair and looking accusingly at Dumbledore. "Are you a groupie?" he asked suspiciously. Dumbledore laughed long and hard at the doctor's question, causing the doctor to relax a little. "Hardly, Merlin. Or do you prefer to use the title of Doctor?" he asked. "To the wizarding world, you are known as Merlin, but everywhere else you seem to have used the Doctor," he pointed out. "Or would you have me use your alias, John Smith?" he asked. "Doctor would be just fine, thank you," the doctor said, nervous about how much this man seemed to know about him. Professor Dumbledore again motioned for the doctor to take a seat. The doctor obliged, but looked like he was ready to bolt at any moment. "I suppose the best way to explain this is to start at the beginning," Dumbledore said. "When I was much younger, I fought a good friend of mine in order to protect some muggles. Because I displayed exemplary wizarding skills in the defense of muggles, I was awarded the Order of Merlin," he told the doctor. "Once I received the award, I began thinking about the name of the award. Usually, an order is a group of people devoted to the same cause. I started researching the Order of Merlin and discovered that they had in fact been a secret society dedicated to upholding the beliefs of Merlin and offering him assistance whenever he needed it," he explained. "I thought this was odd, considering at that time I thought Merlin was dead, until I became friends with the head of the real Order of Merlin, Nicholas Flamel. He said that he had been watching me and wanted me to join their brotherhood. Needless to say, I jumped at the chance," he said. "You're telling me there are more of you running around?" the doctor demanded. "I knew it! Groupies!" he said. Dumbledore ignored the doctor and continued with his story. "Nico showed me that there had actually been more than one Merlin in Arthur's court. One of them was a shape-changer who showed up every so often to help keep the king on the straight and narrow," he said. Nico went on to explain that there had been confirmed sightings of Merlin throughout time, long before he should have been born, and long after he supposedly died, he went on. Dumbledore picked up the book about Pompeii and Merlin's diary to drive his point home. He chuckled a bit before continuing. "It wasn't until I spent a night drinking in a Muggle pub with a rather odd man back in 1947 that I learned there was much more to Merlin than I ever dreamed," he said. The doctor rolled his eyes. "Let me guess. Tall, dark hair, American accent, and has a fondness for long coats," the doctor offered. The headmaster grinned from ear to ear. "Yes, that would be him," he confirmed. "Jack," the doctor muttered, shaking his head. "What all did he tell you?" he asked, not sure he wanted to know. "He told me that you were the last of your kind, and had devoted yourself to protecting the human race," Dumbledore replied. "He misses you, by the way," he told the doctor softly. The doctor perked up and grinned at Dumbledore, remembering how Jack had found him again, and how brave he and Martha had been during the year that never was. "Don't worry. I have already caught up with him in about 10 or so years from now," he said. Dumbledore frowned while he tried to muddle through that last sentence structure. "Doctor, Jack told me that you could never turn your back when children were concerned," Dumbledore said. "I'm begging you to stay and help protect the children of this school from the Death Eaters," he implored. "If they win, people like the young Miss Granger will be in grave danger," he added, hoping to tip the scales. The doctor rose from his chair. He hated being manipulated by people using threats of violence against his friends. The fact that he had only just met Hermione didn't make her any less of a friend. "I'll give you my answer in the morning," the doctor said, turning to leave. "That is all I ask, Doctor," Dumbledore said. "We have several guest suites in the castle that are at your disposal, and I would be greatly honored if you sat with me at the head table for dinner tonight," he offered. The doctor was walking away, deep in thought. He waved his hand over his shoulder. Yes, dinner. Whatever," he murmured, distracted by his thoughts. The doctor shut the door behind him and made his way downstairs to find a place to think. Dumbledore sighed, hoping that Jack had been right and the doctor would decide to help. They could use whatever help they could get. He glanced at the parchments on his desk, waiting to be reviewed and signed. Deciding to ignore them for another day, He cracked open the Queen's diary and read a rather torrid section involving the Doctor. He had almost gotten to the really good part when the flue chimed, letting him know that someone wanted to speak with him over a secure connection. Dumbledore hurried over to the flue and spoke the proper passwords. Super sour straws. The face of Rufus Scrimgeour floated in the fireplace. I wish I knew whose bonnet you put a bee into, Albus, the Minister of Magic said. I just spoke with the Prime Minister, and he has decided to send another of his black cats to Hogwarts, he told him worriedly. What does he know that I don't? Have you been speaking with him directly? He demanded. Dumbledore shrugged, trying to look innocent. Honestly, Rufus, I have no idea why the PM suddenly decided to send us his special orders, he said, knowing that the Doctor was nothing of the sort. Scrimgeour frowned. He wasn't used to being kept in the dark. The PM even went so far as to refuse to tell me who the Auror is that he is sending. He only said that she will be arriving at Hogwarts sometime tomorrow, he said sourly. Harry sat down at the table between Ron and Hermione. He spared a glance towards Neville, who was telling Ginny about what had happened earlier in the courtyard. Harry turned to stare at the Slytherin table, hatred burning in his eyes. If it hadn't been for some mysterious man called the Doctor, Draco and his cronies might have seriously hurt Neville this time. He vowed to double his tutoring time with Neville and help him learn how to defend himself. Harry was staring with such intensity that he failed to notice Tonks standing behind him. A painful flick of his left ear caused him to spin around, ready for a fight. Tonks reached past Harry as he spun around and grabbed a devil's egg off his plate.
You won't be needing that. Seekers should stay nice and thin,
she told him mischievously, and popped the morsel in her mouth. Tonks! Harry yelled happily, jumping from the table. He threw his arms around his friend and gave her a huge hug. Tonks had been there for him when he needed a shoulder to cry on after the death of his godfather, Sirius Black.
How have you been, Twerp?
Tonks asked, even though Harry was a couple of inches taller than her now. Harry motioned for the others to make room at the table, ignoring house customs. Tonks looked over at Professor Sprout, who nodded her head, giving the young Auror permission to sit at another table. Tonks squeezed in between Harry and Hermione. So, Nymphadora, they finally realized they made a mistake in your owls and sent you back for more training? Ron teased. Tonks made her arm twice as long as normal and flicked a pile of mashed potatoes from Ron's plate onto his face.
That's a good look for you, cuz,
Tonks said.
Keep it on and maybe you might finally get a good snug. Granted, it'll be from Fang, but beggars can't be choosers,
she taunted playfully. Hermione urgently whispered in Tonks' ear, and she turned candy apple red again, with a hint of deep plum. She looked over at the Ravenclaw table and saw Luna was staring off into space as usual.
Sorry, Ron. I didn't realize that you had actually managed to get a girlfriend, she said while trying to get her skin tone back to normal.
Apology accepted, I think, Ron said hesitantly. But for being mean to me, I'm going to ask Mom to give me your slice of pie next time you eat at the Burrow, he threatened. Tonks pretended to think about things for a moment, and then changed her face to look just like Ron's.
No problem,
she said, changing her face back to normal. Everyone, including Ron, laughed. They all chatted about nothing in particular while they ate, their conversation ending when the room became silent. Students and teachers alike had stopped talking out of respect as Headmaster Dumbledore walked in. The Doctor followed him into the room, and all eyes were on him. When they reached the head table, Professor Dumbledore motioned for the Doctor to sit, while he remained standing. My dear friends, Dumbledore said, looking around the room, we have a guest with us tonight, he told the students. The Doctor gave a half-hearted wave. Ron noticed how meek the Doctor looked, mistaking his cautious behavior for weakness. Oh, great. Another Quirrell, he moaned. Neville shook his hand emphatically. No, that's the guy who stood up to Snape and the Slytherins for me, he told his friend. Ron took a closer look at the head table and saw how Snape was staring at the newcomer with undisguised animosity. Then again, maybe the bloke's all right after all, he amended. Please show our guest every bit of courtesy while he is with us, Dumbledore asked, glancing at Snape for just the briefest of moments. Like us, he is no friend of Voldemort, the Dark Lord, he told them. Hermione had been watching the Doctor while Dumbledore was speaking. He might be too old for her, but that didn't keep her from admiring the goods in the candy shop window. When Dumbledore mentioned Voldemort, almost everyone involuntarily flinched in fear. The Doctor had looked up from his plate in shock. He threw his napkin onto his plate and stormed out of the room. Hermione furrowed her brow in concern when she noticed that the Doctor had a sad, almost ashamed look on his face as he left the great hall. Dumbledore watched the doctor leave, afraid he may have pushed things too far, too soon.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your meal,
he said hastily and sat back down. Conversation exploded like wildfire around the tables. Hermione excused herself from the table and went to see if the doctor was all right. She found him in the entryway up to the school, manically pacing back and forth, talking to himself while running shaky hands through his hair. From where she was standing, she could see the look of shame etched on his face and hear every word he said.
No, no, no! It can't be him. Not again! He raged softly.
It has to be a coincidence. There has to be some other explanation, he fumed. Really big universe. Must be a high chance that two people could use the same name. All right, two really bad people. But still, he went on, trying to convince himself. The doctor stopped pacing as he came to a conclusion. It has to be a different person. I sent the other one into oblivion, he told himself, nodding his head. He took a deep, calming breath. No matter. Even if there's a remote chance that it could be him, I need to stay and protect the children, he decided. With that, the doctor turned away and went off in search of his room for the night. Hermione wasn't sure what she was feeling at the moment. Part of her felt sorry for the doctor and how upset he was. The other part of her was glad that he was sticking around for a while, even if she just considered him eye candy for the moment. Hermione would have been even more concerned had she known what was truly bothering the doctor. She had no idea that the word Voldemort was the Logelfreyan word for Valeyard.